Do I seem intimidating to you? Not all of communication is verbal, and what you do with your body and how you hold yourself within the class has an impact on how students can learn. So today we're focusing on good types and bad types of body language to help you influence your students to be able to learn more. Some general rules, okay? The more space that you occupy, the more power you have, the more confidence you exude. So if you want to have a space of power, you try and make yourself as big as possible. You kind of swell out your chest, you kind of let your arms hang out by your side, you don't stand with your legs really close together, you kind of tend to spread your legs like this, and now you've taken up more space, which provides you with a little bit more confidence. Now this can be taken too far, and you can go to an aggressive state. So the aggressive state happens as you start to try and clench your fist kind of hard, and you're looking like you're about ready to fight, and you start moving towards people or leaning in towards people, and suddenly you become just a little bit more aggressive, and that may be a little intimidating to a lot of students that are just sitting there. On the opposite side, you can go back, and you can try and make yourself as closed and as defensive as possible. Think about when they ask a really hard question. What do you do? Well, you fold your arms. You suddenly made yourself a little more quiet, a little more small. You shrug your shoulders. You come in like this. You start making yourself small. Maybe you'll even cross your legs. Now you're about as small as you can get. You shrink down, and suddenly you become moved into this very defensive state, and you've lost a lot of the general respect for the class. Okay? Those are generally the broad principles of body language. Now, getting into things that are a little bit more specific. I like the math of the body language. The body language is super entertaining. You start talking about angles and impact and things like that, and if you want to face directly at somebody, that becomes confident. But if they're looking at me and I don't want to be very confident, all I got to do is glance off to the side, and their comment goes bing like that and shoots off to the side, and suddenly I become a little bit weaker and not nearly quite as powerful. Now you can use this while you're teaching a class. If you feel that a student who's providing a comment is becoming a little bit on the defensive side or something like that, you can try and use all of these concepts to help them out of a difficult situation, or if they're becoming a little bit obnoxious, you can use the opposite to try and re-commandeer the class away from a student who is a little bit too aggressive. So if I find somebody struggling, I will tend to try and lower myself a little bit. So as I spend a lot of time asking people's questions, and if they're struggling, I will lean back, I will slouch down a little bit. I won't go like this because I want to still be the authority figure, but if I'm standing up, I create a higher angle and I'm looking down at them. This way, I'm leaning back, I'm a little bit more casual, I leave myself open in this fashion, and then it's easier for them to deal with things. People I have problems with. People on the front row. You look at the angle that you have on this front row. I only got about 3 or 4 feet between me and the front row right here. If I stand up and I look at them, I am looking directly down at them. One of the worst moves I made when I was coaching is I was really tired. It was the end of the game, and I went over to the kid and I said, hey, you know, you shouldn't do that. And I was standing directly above. They were looking directly at me like this, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, coach, we'll never do that again. And I personally will never do that again. I didn't want to come in as this alpha male that said, hey, don't ever do this again. I wanted to just provide a comment to help them be a better soccer player. So from now on, I will sit there and I'll get all the way down to my knees. I'll make sure my eyes are directly level with my player when I sit there and talk to them, because I want them to understand that they should feel comfortable. And as you think about it, a position of power comes from above to below. Okay? If you read stuff, you can see about things like shaking hands. If I offer a hand shake like this, we're neutral. Okay? If I offer a handshake like this, I'm dominating you. Okay? I got my hand on top of yours. I'm saying I am better than you. And as a teacher, you want to maintain that kind of relationship. I never teach from sitting down. As soon as I sit down, I suddenly have become on the exact same level as my students. And I've lost the idea of me being the person in power. At the same time, I don't really want to advance on people, because now I've got this position high coming down and they have to look up too much. And we've all had this. Some large person comes and stands too close to you, look up like this, you automatically feel defensive. You feel like they are threatening, even if they're not meaning to. So things like that have a huge impact on how you interact with your students and whether or not you seem like somebody who is aggressive or passive or in control of the classroom. So remember, to keep control of the class, keep yourself big, Don't come too close to the class. Keep yourself a little bit distant, and don't close up and become really small, because that typically allows everybody else in the class to say, oh, they're not in control of the class and things like that. Now, there are some instances where it becomes extremely difficult to maintain control of the class. One of the biggest ones is when you come like this and you turn to write on the board. Notice that I have completely closed myself off from the camera, from the entire class. Okay? Things you can do. You can write like this with a little bit more open. You can try and write extremely fast. Okay? That diminishes the time. You can write 1 or 2 words, turn back around to scan the audience. Things like this actually help recapture the audience's attention. Very important that you don't sit here and write in the space where you are actually hiding the information. You've got to make sure you give everybody an opportunity to go off and read this word. That means I can't block somebody's view. Okay? You start thinking about computer classrooms with computers right on the desk. You know, sometimes the computer is blocking somebody's view, or somebody tall is sitting in the front row, they're blocking people's view. You want to give everybody the opportunity to see what is written on the board or what is presented. And so you need to be able to move around and provide an avenue for individuals to see the material. Another problem comes when I try and advance the slides on my PowerPoint slides. If I reach across with my left hand, notice that I have now completely closed myself off from the audience. Okay? As soon as I get into the room, I see the computer, I put the keyboard someplace efficient, and then I try and go like this. And I try and make sure I always advance by that, and that keeps my view at the audience, and that helps. Eye contact is helpful too. If I sit there and I look directly at somebody, that's good. If I sit there and stare somebody down for more than about 5 seconds, that's just awkward. And now it becomes this staring contest where you start saying, I'm more important than you, you're more important than me, and the first one to look away loses. And you really don't want that type of an idea. And so it's important to make that eye contact, but you don't want to sit there and fixate on any one individual person too often. An excellent way to improve body language is just through movement. As you're moving, even just a little sway back and forth, notice that I've now occupied a little bit more space, and it makes me a little more commanding. The other way, an easier way to do it, is just through talking with your hand. Now, some hand gestures are very good and some are very bad. Things like this, notice how I've kept my palms up the entire time. This says that I'm either offering you something or I'm accepting something from you. And this allows for a reasonable conversation between me and my students. Now, if I go with something like this, then I'm suppressing the ideas, I'm forcing material on the people, and so you want to keep your palms up. Other things that cause problems. If I directly point at a student, now I feel like I'm threatening the student and I'm pointing the student out and singling the student. Instead, it'll all be, yeah, I saw a hand over in this area. And then that way I'm not directly pointing at a student, I'm just waving in the general area and not singling them out. I've just provided a short summary of body language. And I would encourage you to go off and read just a little bit on the vast amount of research in body language and communicating nonverbal. Now, when you do this, you'll see that facial expressions are very important. Now, that's less important in a classroom because of the distance between you and the audience. While smiling is always good and it will change your tone and make it seem more receptive, it's not nearly as vital as it is in one-on-one communication. Now, I'd like to end with describing some of my least favorite things that I see people do while they're teaching or things like that that really help close off the audience. One of my least favorite teaching moves is to come in and sit down on a desk. Notice that I've just dropped about 6 inches in my angle. It's harder for people to see me in the back of the room. I've suddenly started to kind of slouch, I've become a little bit smaller, and I've kind of tried to, quote, bring myself down to the level of the students. The problem is, what am I doing with my feet? I'm telling you, it's really hard to see here, but instead my feet are like swinging and everything becomes really lackadaisical, and it's very hard for me. Now, one of the other problems with sitting down is, at what point am I going to stand up? A student just asked me a question. I feel like I need to stand up, and now I've got to stand up directly at the student, and now it becomes a confrontational moment as the second I go from sitting on the desk back to standing up. So I've lost control of the classroom, I've made myself look like, woo, here I am swinging my legs, we're just out here having a good time, and now I've gone straight into confrontational to try and capture back my class. I don't think anything about sitting down on a table has ever happened in a good setting within a classroom. Another problem comes directly from the facilities. If I have a podium directly in front of me and I'm sitting here and I'm fast forwarding through my slides and just talking like this, I can move my hands as much as I want, but absolutely nobody can tell anything. If I'm ever stuck teaching in a place with a large podium, or maybe it's a computer monitor or something else that is blocking the student's view, I will spend as little time as possible behind there, and I will fast forward the slide, I will walk away, I will try and get my hands up extra high so I can demonstrate body gestures. But fundamentally, no matter how much I do, If I'm behind a podium, nobody can tell how comfortable I am and how much I'm expressing myself nonverbal. Another problem occurs by what I wear. If I dress up super nice, I suddenly have set myself a step above my students. Not just like a little step above, but now I'm like interview step above. And it becomes much more difficult for them to actually answer or ask any question. Not only that, I feel more stuffy. Just by the fact I have this shirt on, my arms are going to move less because it's a little tight around here. I feel like I'm a little bit choked right here, and so I'm going to be much less natural and free, and it will just naturally prohibit general conversation in the classroom. You can obviously go too far in the other direction too, dressing a little too casually. For instance, in a nice t-shirt. Although you might really like your t-shirt, now you've come down to the level of students. You're walking down the hall and you're like, hey, go Chiefs, go Chiefs, hey, what'd you win your championship in? Things like this, and suddenly you've gone from being an esteemed professor, somebody who has a lot of knowledge, to suddenly you're actually down to their level. And you end up losing some of that general respect for the class. And so as you're going about, remember to dress at least a little bit appropriately. Not too much, but not too little to show the general respect for your role as a teacher. I do have to provide one last comment, and that's general hygiene. Okay, every once in a while you run across a faculty member who's just too busy with research that they can't really take care of themselves personally. It's very important that you shower and bathe and shave and all these other things like this so that you look like you're with it. And the idea is that who wants to learn from somebody whose life appears to be a bigger disaster than their own? These kind of things should help you become a little better teacher and a little more reception from your students. Please give me a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel.